sure what I did last
I'm
week.
sorry, my brain is.
4:39, this time we'll call the meeting of the Canyon City Commission to order. And with that, Mayor Pro Tem, would you please?
Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you so much for all that you do for us, Father. Thank you for this great city and the great weather we've had. Father, just be with the families that are suffering right now in the city with the recent tragedy. Father, we just pray that you put your loving arms around that family. And Father, be with our first responders. Just continue to keep our first responders safe, and thank you for the safety of all the employees of the City of Canyon. Father, we just continue to pray for our guidance as we move through this meeting. We make decisions that would honor you. We love you and praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
Stand for the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, takes us to the approval of the minutes of the special meeting of August 19, 2025.
If there are no changes, I'll move we approve.
I'll second.
Motion second to approve minutes is written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 5, public comment. Comments from interested citizens.
Nobody has signed in, Mayor.
Thank you. Then item number 6, consider and take appropriate action on proposed CEDC budget for 2025-26 with financial update. Michael?
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having me. I hope, do y'all have this in front of you, or you can see it or no?
It's in the.
Got it in
Oh,
the packet.
okay.
I apologize. I have no brain today.
Oh, yeah, okay. The first page is the summary of the budget. You're going to see that there's really not much difference line by line, but I do want to point out from the far right column, which is our proposed budget, to the column to the left, you're going to see a difference of $100,000, and I want to tell you why. There's 2 entries in this year's budget that was not in last year's budget, and one of them is for the small business assistance at $50,000, and then the other is for future use to help offset or be part of the matching funds for the grants that are going to be used for the downtown revitalization, and that's also at $50,000. So that's the $100,000 difference that you see. Other than that, most of the line items, if not all of the line items, are identical or maybe just off by a few dollars from last year. When you look at our total budget and then add in the project obligations that we'll look at the end and the marketing, we're still going to show a net positive balance of around $75,000. That's including some interest income on our 2 checking accounts, and we do have some rental income also. So with all of that, we still show a little bit of a net positive. And then at the bottom, you'll see our fund balances, a little over $550,000 in our general account, and then a little over $330,000 in marketing. The next 3 pages are just a breakdown of 3 of the line items on the summary page that are just showing a little bit more detail, dollars that we have earmarked for retention and expansion. And that's where you're going to see the net profit there of 75. Yeah, so retention and expansion, that's just a more detailed breakdown of monies that we spend for Action Coach, that we do our coffee and conversations in our quarterly growth club, and then what we spend with Spencer with Leading Edge. And I've already seen that the first Friday that he was here, I believe that he had no one meet with him. And this coming Friday, he's full. So the word is getting out more, and people are using him, not necessarily for incentives from the EDC, but just for help.
Will you remind the commission kind of his scope of service?
Yeah, so he'll help if it's a company coming to the EDC, maybe for incentive, he will help them put a business plan together. So the EDC board has something to look at. He'll put a pro forma together. But it doesn't always have to be incentive-based. It can be just somebody needing some help. Their business is a little out of whack and they don't have, their numbers aren't right, and they just need a little direction on how do they get everything on paper. Or maybe they're needing to go out and just get a loan. They're wanting to do a refinance, anything like that. He can help them build the structure to move forward. So we're seeing more and more use of him. It's a good use of dollars for our local businesses. So that's kind of a breakdown of, like I said, you can equate these 3 pages back to the front summary page. They're line items on that page. Page 3 is staff training. I've got some money in there. I believe in CEUs, and we get a lot of that through our membership with the High Ground and our state association, which is TEDC. That's where I'll get all of my CEUs. And I wanted to have some dollars in there for all 3 of us in the office to be able to utilize that. And then finally, the biggest portion is the marketing. And we've changed a few things as to this year's going to look probably a little bit different. We're going to move more towards some social media marketing. A couple of our bigger expenses is our partnership with Site Location Partnership, which helps us with business attraction outside the area, more probably industrial, and that's not even the right word, probably more warehousing distribution is a better term. And then our subscription with Retail Strategies. I believe that we're in contract with them for 3 years. We're just finishing up year 1, and they help us on the retail side. So that would be food, shops, stores, any of that kind of stuff. They represent us at one of the biggest shows for that is called ICSC. They represent us there. There's a show in Texas and one in Vegas. The big one's in Vegas. They have a lot of retail connections. They're just now starting to give me a quarterly report on who they're talking to and what those companies are saying. And I think that will help us. If we want to spend some additional marketing dollars, that will help us kind of zero in on what we want to spend that on and who we want to spend it with. So there's other monies in here for billboards, sponsorships, some travel. All of the travel will come out of here. That's why the number's a little bigger. Some of these dollars are offset. If it involves Visit Canyon, it's offset by some BCD funds. I believe, I don't know, John, you can correct me, I think last year was around 60,000 was reimbursed. So some of this is reimbursed through that avenue. Page 5 is just the balance sheet that backs up the fund balances that are on the summary page in the front, the 572 and the 330. And I think that's about it. Page 8 is 9 years worth of sales tax revenue. We have 1 month left on this year, and it's going to put us at nearly what we have projected for this budget as far as sales tax revenue. So that's good. The last page I have is our project page, some that have expired or been fully funded, and the others are active. I'll update this and probably take off the retired projects. And you'll see the far right column is what I expect our exposure to be this next fiscal year on projects of a little over 500,000. That ties back to one of the line items on the summary page. That was kind of short and sweet. Are there any questions? The EDC board met on August 21st and voted to present this to y'all.
I'll say one of the things, there's lots of projects, which you already know. A lot of those are currently in the works, but one of the things, going back to Spencer and building business plans and also the cafe conversations, it's coffee and conversations, was we decided a couple of years ago that it wasn't just about bringing new business to Canyon, because we needed to support the people that we had here as well. And at the time, we had some businesses that were really struggling, and we needed them to be able to get more on their feet. And so that was the whole purpose of doing that, is we didn't want to push people out. We wanted to keep them and help them be solid before we brought new people in. And so that was the goal of that piece of it, to help our current people here. So,
The advice too is how to do some things better and all too within.
they were, yeah, we had some businesses just didn't have a good business plan to begin with, and so they were struggling to stay open, and so how could we help them stay open with what they had?
And Rory with Action Coach will go further and he'll help people put together like 90-day projected plans and go out in the future.
I move we approve.
I'll say
Second. A motion second to approve the CEDC budget. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Those like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, now it takes us to legislative update. John, looks like you're leading the chart.
I do. I'll start. I'll be the first one to start on some and remind you that what we're doing is going through, each department has gone through and looked at 3 to 5 of the bills that came through in the regular session that affected their departments the most, and they're sharing those tonight. There'll be quite a few of us. Hector's not here tonight. Gretchen's going to go through hers and she'll pick up Hector's information also. Bo came breezing up to my office earlier today and says, hey, special session, things are going on, some things changed on the budget and all kinds of stuff. And so I think there'll be a part 2 will occur later on, where we talk about what happens in the special session, because lots of things are happening down there that are affecting us. And so we'll come back with that. First thing I want to talk about here is Lucas put this together before he left, and these were the bills that he thought affected us the most in the area of land use. Number 1 was the zoning amendments and protest. There are new requirements for protesting. It talks about how you have to do that in some different dates. Protest against zoning changes that increase in density for housing are now more difficult to obtain. State is trying to make it easier for housing to be constructed. So it's kind of interesting. Down in Austin, we have a legislative body that seems to really support personal rights. By golly, that's my property. By golly, I can kind of do what I want to do. And by golly, all of those type of things. And yet they're acknowledging that there is a housing crunch in the state of Texas, and that we need more housing. And part of getting more housing is changing the zonings in some communities. And so they've actually made it easier for you to change the zoning on your property, harder for others to protest against you. So yes, they're supporting the individual's rights, but it doesn't all add up sometimes when you put it all together. But what they're trying to do is increase housing. And what that boils down to is, in most places, is multifamily. Is what we're talking about. Smaller lots and multifamily, that's what people are rezoning for, and this changes that. One of the things we're gonna have to do is, and Joe brought it to our attention just last week, is we're gonna have to put up some signs. We have to put up a signs that are, Beck and I were going over that. They are 4 foot by 2 foot or 3 foot. Well, how big was it? By 2 foot.
Yeah, we looked at that, 2 foot by 4 foot.
And so they're large. They say we have to put those up, but on this bill, it doesn't tell you exactly what you have to put on there. Chuck and I have talked about that, and we'll get the right things on there. You can anticipate by the next session when that comes up, it will be very specific on what you have to put on there, exactly what type of font, how large it needs to be, and what it has to say. But this time around, it's just a sign this big.
So what's interesting about that is the sign has to go up 10 days before the P&Z hearing. The notice has to be published 15 days ahead of time and on the city's internet website. So what we kind of settled on is the sign can be generic and just refer back to the notice public hearing published on the city's internet website,
We need to get
which
that,
makes sense.
we need to get that moving sooner rather than later.
We will, as soon as Megan and I talked about it, we'll get on it when she gets back. So it's kind of there's some changes, but again, They didn't quite get all the way through that. It'll change again at the next session. 2844, mobile food vendor regulations limits city's authority greatly. Not able to keep them away from brick and mortar restaurants. So there's been some changes, and you wouldn't be able to. Some cities had ordinances where a food truck couldn't park too close to a brick and mortar restaurant, and so those things have gone away. Less local inspection allowed. Not anything that we're doing, but it's all stuff that Amarillo does for us. The health department does those things, and if we ask the health department, they would be disappointed and feel like they'd lost some authority in their ability to do some things. So it's kind of freed that up. Why? Because somewhere someone has put too much regulation on those, and that made it to Austin, and so they have more freedom there. 1844, disannexation for failure to provide services. Again, this is coming out of, I suppose, the bill from 2 years ago, from outside of Austin, near the lake, where the city of Austin said they would provide services at some point, or were accused of saying that they would provide services, and they didn't provide them adequately or in the appropriate time. So this talks about that. If a municipality fails to deliver these services within the timeframe outlined in applicable annexation plans, agreements, or resolutions, affected property owners are given a clear legal path to seek disannexation. So we annexed them. In theory, they were promised some services. In theory, they proved that they don't have those services, then they could move toward disannexation. A key change made by the bill is replacing qualified voters with property owners as eligible petitioners for disannexation. Previously, it had stated qualified voters, which would be anybody living there. And now it states property owners, so it would be people that own property in that area. Might
Probably
not,
have to be registered voters as well, so
Yeah.
now this is saying they don't have to be.
right. So they might not live there, they might just own property, correct? So it has addressed it, because they didn't address it the way that some group wanted it addressed last time. Single stairway regulations, one that Craig and I have kind of talked about, 2835 allows municipalities to permit single stairway apartment buildings under specific safety conditions. This means a developer can build apartment buildings with 6 or fewer stories that have a single staircase, but only if they meet 14 detailed safety conditions. So you wouldn't have to have 2 ways out, 2 exits off that stairway. You could have one stairway, but it clearly lists 14 things, very clear on what you have to have in order to do that. One of those may be sprinkled, if I'm not mistaken. So others wouldn't be doing that, but if I don't want to build that other stairwell, which enables me to add more apartments possibly, or do something different, I could do these other things and I wouldn't have to do it. Intended to increase housing options and increase affordable housing. So again, associated with a real or a perceived housing shortage, specifically in the large cities, trying to make things easier to build more apartments or multifamily housing. Craig, isn't that how you would describe that? So that's all I have on land use. I think, Gretchen, you want to cover Hector there a little bit?
Yes, I'll talk about Hector. House Bill 3161 allows cities that operate through TMRS to increase their contribution rate to 8%, which would also increase the employee contribution rate to the city's contribution rate to 16%. I've talked to a lot of our other cities through my connections. Very few cities are considering this because of the budget constraints that people are experiencing right now. And it's hard on employees, so I think a lot of employees aren't real big on adding more to what they're contributing. So it's out there. It may be something later that could be considered, but right now it's not a big deal. sorry, I was reading. There is a bill that they introduced that would increase minimum wage, but that did not pass. So I think he put that in there just as a point of concerned people. Firefighter cancer screening is now required for cities. This would be for firefighters effective June 1st of 2026. And it also expands the conditions under which heart attacks and strokes are presumed to be work-related with firefighters and peace officers. So they're just expanding a lot of the things that I guess our first responders experience a lot of stress, possibly, and are exposed to a lot of chemicals that can cause health conditions, and making sure that they're taken care of.
I think Chief Quinn and I have talked about some of that as well.
Right. And I'm sure Hector's looking into how that applies, that we'll have to do the cancer screenings or how that, sorry?
He's gonna cover some of that
Oh,
too,
well, then
yes.
you can talk about that
Yes,
more.
thank you.
And I'll let you also, there is state law that volunteer firefighters compensation, we can compensate them. And that's SB 5424, but then when you go to SB 4044, it suggests that volunteers should not have a salary. We are not considering giving volunteers salary. You guys do provide the retirement, which is, I think, very generous in how that's going, and Chief Wynn may talk more about that. And then they do talk about the contracts for separation a little bit. They've suggested that any contract drawn before September 1st, 2025 does not need to be modified because they've implemented a 20-week severance pay. And I think a lot of that we can thank Amarillo for what they did a couple of years ago when they really just blew up that severance pay for one of their city managers. They do attribute a lot of that to them. But right now, Joe, your contract's good. And I'm sure that will be addressed at a later date. Hector may have some more stuff with this new special session that's going on. For me, you've noticed meeting agendas are going out much earlier. They've implemented, as far as I'm concerned, the 72-hour posting law is out the window because it's a full 3-day posting now, which means the day that you post and the day of the meeting do not count towards that posting requirement. It has to be the 3 full days. So that's why I posted Tuesday. We have a holiday yesterday that required that we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to have that agenda publicly posted. It'll change a lot of things. We'll have agendas having to be sent out a week early at times with holidays. I like transparency. I'm for that, but it does make it more difficult if you have something come up that you need to add to an agenda. It is the opinion of TML that since we consistently send out our whole agenda packet, you can't even add an item to the agenda because they see that as constitutionally changing the agenda and making an adaptation to it. So if somebody,
Gretchen and I have made a concentrated effort. We're not just going to post the agenda because probably we could get away just posting the agenda without the packet, but we don't want to do that. We want to post like we have been.
yeah, I think, they also don't, you should stay consistent with all our postings. And if we change that now, that can be seen as, people can say we're trying to hide something or we're not being transparent. And I feel like it is better for us to just post the whole packet, and very little stuff can't wait till the next meeting. We meet once a month generally, so I think we're better doing that. But it is, I want to thank staff. They've been amazing. I went ahead and implemented this a month early once we knew it'd be effective September 1st, and they've been great at getting me documents and getting everything to me in time. So it's good and bad. I can see good and bad with that. Also, on elections, they've eliminated the 4-day gap between early voting and election day voting. It used to be we'd have early voting for 2 weeks and then 4 days, and then you'd have election day. That's going away. So I guess it just keeps it a little bit smoother. And the most exciting one, HB 4419, Smithy filed a bill for us. We found when the lumberyard wanted to have an alcohol license. I told Joe we can't do that because we have to have another election that would bring in any annexed areas under the same guise. Otherwise, it stayed under Randall County, which is beer and wine off premise only. So he approached Smithy and they put a bill in. It is very specific to us, which there are a lot of alcohol bills out there. They're specific to certain territories, and this one's written, has to be around Highway 60 with 287 with a population of this and this and this. But it's nice because it grandfathers anything we've annexed in since our original alcohol election, and it will carry into any annexed areas in the future. We won't have to have another election. So the lumberyard, they're gonna bring in a Chili's out in Madison Park, any of those areas, they will be under our beer and wine off premise and then our food certificate. If the only reason we'd have to have an election is somebody petitioned me to have liquor stores or bars or go further on what our election, our local option is right now. So I think that's a very good thing for Canyon, and I appreciate Smithy and Joe's work on all of that. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Enriquez is up.
There are just a handful of bills that really affected us. I think a lot of the stuff was really geared towards electrical companies based off of the wildfires and whatnot. Under transportation, we did have a railroad grade crossings bill, 1555. Establishes a grant program through the TxDOT to fund railroad grade separation projects. I don't know that that any of that would really have an effect on us, but it is interesting considering we have 7 railroad five at-grade crossings and 2 grade break crossings. So it's interesting. I don't know if that's something we could utilize at some point, but it's something to consider. 1584 under the utilities, priority facilities for electric utilities. This is kind of an agreement that we've had with Xcel in the past, where we would be kind of one of their priority facilities. We kind of had to have that as part of a redundancy plan that we did in I want to say it was 2022. So we had a letter from them saying that they would treat us essentially as a priority facility. But now this kind of formalizes that process. Electric companies are required to create and maintain this list. And we'll definitely have discussions on it to make sure that we're on the formal list. But part of that is having a web-based portal where facilities can request that inclusion in the list. And I think they have like 14 days to respond once you request that. 1991 service charges for municipally owned utilities. Kind of something that we've been doing already as far as putting stuff on our website and whatnot. This just says that if we go in and change something, we typically only do it once a year, right before budget time when we change our fee schedule and whatnot. But if we were to go in and change something in between those cycles, we would have 30 days to post something, any changes online at that point. So I don't foresee any of that happening, but I would see where we just stick to our schedule. But in the event that we wanted to change something, that gives us an avenue to do so. The water research one, that one just thought was interesting based off of the water conditions, right? Kind of lets us work with other governments like the City of Amarillo, Randall County, or whatever, to perform some research on these on water sourcing and whatnot. So I thought that was an interesting one. And then 482, kind of surprised Chief didn't cover this one for me, but kind of
Saved it for you.
yeah. It does escalate some charges when utility employees are harassed or when there's interference with duties that utility employees are trying to perform regular duties. This kind of escalates some of the charges against some of that stuff. So Class A misdemeanor can be elevated to a 3rd degree felony. I did find one source that specifically referenced disaster declarations and whatnot, but the TML thing that they put out didn't reference that. So I think it's in general is that these charges could be escalated as far as harassment of utility employees or assault. So anyway, as I said, not quite as interesting as the others, but some
And that
nonetheless.
harassment could really be an issue, right, when we have to go cut off a service?
There are a few strange people.
And I don't know that we have issues with that very often.
We don't often, but we have in the past. There's been a couple things here and there, so we do run into it, especially when you got habitual violations, I guess, of that. So it can be.
Okay.
All right, thank y'all.
Michael, you didn't get enough airtime, so you're up again.
More time. Luckily, there wasn't much activity in the economic development realm. The tool that y'all have as a municipality to participate in incentivization and abatement, some infrastructure help with businesses is called Chapter 380. And there was a little bit of activity. I don't believe it was Senate Bill 878, and I don't believe that it got out of committee. And one of the biggest items there is that y'all have the ability to abate ad valorem tax and sales tax, or. And they wanted to eliminate the ability to abate ad valorem. They weren't touching the sales tax piece, but they wanted to eliminate the ad valorem piece. And the agreements right now have the ability to go beyond 10 years. And the language was that they wanted a 10-year agreement, or the agreement to be 10 years max, but you could do 3 5-year add-ons, but it had to be voted on each time. It had to go back, you had to go back through the process each time, but it didn't make it out of committee. So the rules are still the same on 380. And then I thought I'd touch a little bit on what's called the JEDI, or Chapter 403. That took the place of 313, and that's what the schools use for abatement. And one of the big things Dan Patrick didn't like the renewable, especially the windmills, the renewable industry to use the Chapter 313 because they used it a lot in the state. And so they came out with 403, which renewable energy is not a part of. And it's called JEDI for Jobs, Energy, Technology, and Innovation. And the schools still have the ability to limit the valuation on property up to 50% for 10 years, but the pilot payment's gone now. So there used to be a payment in lieu of taxes, which especially Robin Hood schools really liked, because they could get that payment and it didn't fall under the terms of Robin Hood and have to be sent back to Austin. So it was attractive to the Robin Hood schools, but that mechanism is gone now. So the bottom line is the biggest thing. It's making this bill not be very successful. The companies have to meet a wage requirement of 110% of the median wage of whatever NAICS code that business is in, and they're not able to do that. So a couple of weeks ago, I went to a training in Lubbock, and we got an update on the legislative piece. And he said that right now, there are so many 313 deals that are still on the table that made it in before the deadline. They could hire somebody in their office today that would retire before all the 313s are completed. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with 403. Right now, it's not working very well. It's out there, but nobody's using it. So that's all I've got.
I know in 78, just because it made it to committee, we can anticipate
Yes.
coming back again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
This takes time. Well, we have saved the fire department to bring us home.
Hang on, we'll get there.
Okay.
This first one that I brought up, Chief Brush brought it up during his bills as well, but as many of y'all know, it's a very far-reaching bill, the Uvalde Strong Act, law enforcement, schools, fire and EMS now, so we're all in that. But it's a very good thing. First off, something new for the EMS services, which is fire department. You know, we're not a transport, but we are a licensed first responder for EMS, so it does affect us. It requires us to now do a official evaluation report on any responses that we make to any active shooters events. And those will be sent to the TDM and the alert. If you don't know, alert is the, help me out, Cody, they are the place that they write all the training on on active shooter responses. So they want to get copies of that and look through those evaluations. Another good thing that requires EMS personnel to come in and actually receive training. We do that locally here. We've already been doing that. But there are so many places out there in some of the conferences I go to and other chiefs talking now, we're really not into that yet. They're behind the eight ball. I mean, so I think this is something good because now it's going to be an annual multi-agency training, alternating years tabletop, and an actual scenario based on the other years. So that's going to be good. And also anybody that's any first responder that's involved in one of these incidents, mental health resources will be available to those. So another good one for us because we are still considered a volunteer fire department with Texas Forest Service. We have not reached the threshold yet, which 20 events? It's 20. We get 20 full-time paid employees. That will not apply to us anymore. But as of right now, and this is all due to the Million Acre Fire, we had several local fire chiefs in the Panhandle area that went down and testified about the Million Acre Fire and the lack of funding that the Panhandle seems to be left out of. So what this does, there was a $30 million cap on the funding for the program and this rural assistance program. We refer to House Bill 2604 funding, which we get a reimbursement from. Our pending grass truck right now, I believe that's $120,000 that'll come out of this fund, which update on that truck. Freightliner has built it. It's sitting at their factory waiting to get shipped to Lubbock. So we'll see. But it removes the $30 million cap that had been prior funding for the program, and 10% of appropriations out of that fund are specifically for areas that are deemed areas in the state classified as being high risk for large wildfires, which the Panhandle will be in that. So that's a good thing. Something new for the fire service and EMS. Law enforcement gets a lot of training in this. Human trafficking. We are now going to be required to have training on human trafficking. Don't know why TCO wasn't involved developing this, but this will be through Health and Human Services Commission. And once they post that on their website, we'll be required to take that training. Whether it's online training or in-person training, we don't know yet. This next one is pretty good for us too. I don't know if you're in, know a lot about battery energy storage systems. These facilities come in, and it's a lot like an electric car that starts off with all these little batteries that are about the size of a AA battery, compacted into cells, and they hook all these cells together to get the voltage they need. Well, that technology, now just think of a 40-foot shipping container with racks and racks of these with the ability to boost, let's just say Xcel's energy system. That's a lot of energy in there, and daily, I say daily, monthly, weekly, whatever, they're coming up on the fire department's response on how we should respond to these, because it's a very hazardous thing. But the good deal for us is if one of these facilities come in, of course, Greg and his crew would be involved in the city limits, not too worried about that. But if they install these out in the county where there's not a lot of regulations, not a lot of inspections, they are required to come to the fire department, give us a copy of their operation plans or protocols, their hazard mitigation analysis, and give us training specific to that facility on how to respond to that facility, and give us their written protocols for that. So that's going to be good for us. As for the cancer screening for firefighters, yes, it does require political subdivisions now to offer that. I believe that's after 5 years. We start that immediately. During the application process, interview process, before the job offer is made, they have come to us and they've already been submitted to a NFPA firefighter physical, and the doctor has signed off on that saying everything's okay. So we're ahead of the game on that. So don't see a lot of financial impact on that other than as we hire these new firefighters. Our volunteers also submit before they are approved for membership to volunteer firefighter physical. In addition to that, our career staff is subjected to a firefighter physical on an annual basis with cancer screening. So, any questions?
So the paid employees are, but the volunteers aren't on an annual?
They're offered.
Okay.
And they're offered the cancer screening. hadn't had anybody take us up on it. We've had a couple volunteers, I think, take us up on the cancer screening. Our cancer screening process is a blood test. So it takes your first year to get your baseline. And then each year after that, they're looking at different they call them markers, that test for 7 different cancers that firefighters are at a high incidence for. So
Could you require it?
could I require it? I think it's up to each individual. It's offered to them. Do they want it or not? So, I mean, they're already having to go through a full firefighter physical. We used to send them to their family doctor. Sign up, yeah, he can be a volunteer firefighter. Now they are going through the same physical process and all the testing that career staff do. We want to make sure that they're coming in healthy and ready to do the job.
You could have a full-timer refuse the test also, correct, on the cancer screen?
If they have a valid reason, I'd have to get with HR on what would be a valid reason. But they just know, condition of their employment, they take a annual firefighter physical, and that includes a cancer screen.
Want to reiterate, go back up to the Uvalde Strong and just kind of something that you said, and this is really just a thank you out there, because I have 3 entities in here that, as from the school district's standpoint, that I get to work with. And so our police department, sheriff department, and our fire department, and then all the others, we are very blessed in this area that our groups work very well together. They support me at the school district on the safety side in anything that I ask for. I work with people all over the state, and that is not the case. I work with people all over the nation. I sit on a federal board for that, and that is not the case. And so we're very, very blessed by the support we have from all the entities, not just at the city level, but the school level, and how everybody works together to make sure that our area is safe in all areas. So they do a great job.
Anything else? Thank you.
So briefly, do you want a municipal court update?
Yes, sir, please do.
So what I've got, Judge Cates is going to present a few comments on municipal court bills of interest, and Brooklyn is going to present a few comments on from the prosecutor standpoint on the municipal court bills of interest. So Judge Cates, you have some handouts.
Oh, well, there was an error in the printing. They were only one-sided, so we
Okay,
will be better
all right.
next time, but.
Sounds good. We'll just have a few comments by way of update. Then I'll talk a little bit about court of record.
All right. Sorry about the phone. I'm on call tonight, so I apologize about that. So, keep it pretty short and sweet. Senate Bill 1186, it extended the execution of blood search warrants in any county adjacent to the county in which the warrant was issued. So they may be executed in any county adjacent in the county and by any law enforcement officer authorized to make the arrest in the county of execution. So it just clarifies that the peace officer who is physically in the county of execution, regardless of the county of their department is in, will be able to execute the blood search warrant. So let's say if Canyon PD has to go up to Northwest, execute a blood draw search warrant, they can sure do that. And so, and then I can sign it. So there we go. That happens a lot in the smaller counties too. They don't have a hospital, so they may have to, Hutchinson may have to go to Northwest, and so they can execute it there too. House Bill 1950 consolidated the Municipal Court Security Fund and the Technology Fund into one for any city under 100,000. And that just gives us some leeway. You still have to use it either for security or technology, but you don't have to have it as itemized. You can join it into one fund. Now, and that's after May 29th, 2025. So if you still have funds before that, you have to keep the 2 separate accounts, but then after that, you join them. And then what they said was, once your population increases, then you split them again. But I think we're fine with that. House Bill 75 for magistrates, you have to have a written probable cause determination if you do not find probable cause, and that has to be within 24 hours after the magistrate determines no probable cause, you have to actually put it in writing. And so I'll be adjusting our forms because if there's no probable cause and then later Chuck doesn't take the case, I guess I'll just keep it in a separate file. So Senate Bill 664, Judge and Magistrate Qualifications. These are for Section 54 Government Code magistrates that are appointed by the district judges. You're seeing a lot more of some qualifications that they think that they need. You have to be a Texas attorney in good standing for at least 5 years. If you're setting bail, you need to have bail training. So they're getting a little bit more rigid about their magistrate judges, as well they should. And then it expands the local administrative judge. It expands the different places where if there's an issue, she needs to report it. So she'll need to report it. And I say she because of, here it's Judge Estevez. She'll have to report it to the Office of Court Administration of the Texas Judicial System, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, and to any commissioner's court where that judge is also falls under. And then House Bill 2001, I found this interesting. This is relating to the increasing the criminal penalties for certain misuse of official information, including misuse of official information that results in certain net financial gains. So a public servant commits this offense in reliance on the information to which the public service has access by virtue of the person's office or employment that has not been made public. The person uses the information to obtain a benefit or with intent to harm or defraud another. So some insider trading. But what I found was interesting, they upped these penalties. You could even, if you gain more than $300,000, that's a first-degree felony. So you don't see that a lot in financial crimes where they're going for that first-degree felony, so they've upped that. So they found that very important. And then finally, my last one, which as we become a court of record, and Mr. Hester's going to talk about that, certified court interpreters. We're going to have those certified for any type. Now, if they just come in for a plea and it's not contested, I think we're fine. But any jury trials, contested motions, contested hearings, we're going to have a certified court reporter or a certified interpreter. I know Amarillo, for some of the languages, they bring in someone in person, but they're using Language Line, and we use Language Line also, but we're going to have to make sure they're certified. So that's a different expense. I know that Amarillo, I called them today, they're paying between $150 to $200 an hour, and I think it's a 4-hour minimum. I think Language Line will probably be cheaper, and I'll sure check that out before we have any contested hearings. And I'll do my due diligence on that. And then we're going to have Brooklyn.
Okay, so this looks really bad. I didn't manage to mess up my own printouts, just Judge Kate's. So here are these.
We didn't get these to Gretchen in time to get them in the agenda packet. That's on me, so not on them. So apologize for that.
One demerit for Chuck Hester.
Two demerits.
Two demerits.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get that in the record.
Okay, so just a few bills that were passed in this legislative update that I thought were interesting from the prosecutorial side of things. First being the driving safety course requirement under Senate Bill 296 has changed. This bill permits a citizen to complete a single driver safety course or a DSC to satisfy requirements for multiple offenses when a DSC is mandatory. So the individual must still pay fines associated with both of those offenses, and they must otherwise qualify for the DSC. So if you've already used your DSC for the year or anything like that, it doesn't inhibit any of those standing requirements. And the other big issue here with this bill specifically is that the offenses must arise out of the same criminal transaction. And they went into this whole big thing about what a criminal transaction is. And our judge has decided that our court will interpret that as if they're on the same ticket. So if they're on the same ticket and you come in and you have multiple offenses that will qualify for a DSC, there is no point in us making you do 2 driver safety courses. So for example, if a citizen receives one citation that includes both speeding and running a stop sign, you're going to be required to pay both of your fines, but you can do 1 driver safety course and handle your obligations there. So just makes that a little bit more efficient. The second highlight I want to make is Senate Bill 826, and this is an enhancement on a DWI in a school zone. This bill will enhance the penalty for driving while intoxicated from a Class B misdemeanor to a state jail felony if the actor was operating the motor vehicle in a school zone during the time at which the reduced speed limit was in effect. So we're talking about extending some of those speed zones between, the intermediate and the elementary, or the intermediate and the junior high, wherever we were discussing. So those DWI enhancements will play a large role in Canyon being on some of our highly traveled areas. Senate Bill 482 will sound familiar because Mr. Enriquez stole my thunder on one of mine. But all it is that the utility personnel are now protected at the same level as a first responder. And I did read it to be during times of disaster or evacuation. So just protecting some of our utility workers when they're out there in dangerous settings. And then the last one, I know that animal control is kind of a big deal in Canyon right now, and we're hiring more officers to manage that task. Under Senate Bill 305, this bill has added animal control officers and officers issuing parking citations in their vehicles to the list of vehicles with special protections under the slow down or move over rules. So we just have a lot of that going on in this city, and if we bring that to light, I think people recognize, slow down or move over for some of our first responders, but these vehicles are added to the special protections list. And that's all I have.
Finally, just to wrap up, the City Commission adopted Ordinance 1221 in January of this year to create a court of record in Canyon. As of September 1st, 2025, we are a court of record. That is very important from an enforcement standpoint because the jurisdiction of the court of record is concurrent with district court or county court of law under subchapter B of Chapter 54, which are health and safety regulations in the local government code. Ordinance is adopted under subchapter A of Chapter 214. Those are substandard buildings and dangerous structures. So effectively, the court of record now has concurrent jurisdiction with district court or county court of law in regard to those enforcement actions. It really did assist and ramp up our ability to enforce Canyon City ordinances and health and safety regulations by creation of the court of record, and the judge can now sign warrants. She is a lawyer with many years of experience as a practicing attorney and municipal court judge, and so she can sign off on those warrants. What was highlighted by Judge Cates about the ability to serve blood warrants in an adjacent county, similar to what you might expect, that it's more convenient to have the officer who can make an arrest, who's qualified to make an arrest in the issuing jurisdiction, serve it in the adjacent county, in case you have to drive into Potter County to get the blood draw.
Remind us of the no de novo clause.
So the important aspect of the municipal court of record is you don't get a trial de novo. In other words, previously in a municipal court that's not a court of record, you got one free bite at the apple. You could preview the state's case if you tried it in municipal court and then immediately take an appeal to the county court of law. You get to start over like it never happened in the trial court. that is no longer the case. We notified, when this ordinance became effective, we notified Judge Anderson and Judge Martindale that they are now going to be serving as appellate courts. It's going to be traditional appellate review, not trial de novo, which is important because it deters a lot of appeals that would ordinarily happen. Those will not happen anymore because you got to get a transcript and prove up that an error of law occurred in the trial court that warrants reversal. And so that is a very important aspect to it. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
John, thank you all for all the updates. Appreciate you digging in to keep us informed. I know you've met on that several times through the legislative session. So thank you all. All right, with that, I think that wraps us up to go to exec session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney. And I have 5:34. This time we will adjourn into exec session.